So that looks like we are on a mountain right there. That's actually a painting behind us.
Yeah.
Here, it looks like you're going to have to act
awesome.
like you like me
Oh.
so that we're closer. Okay, so we actually have been celebrating. Oh, do I want to tag Nathan Greene in this video? Yes, I'm going to tag you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now you can't.
Facial recognized me.
Or it might have known you were my husband because, that makes sense.
Maybe.
Right? Okay, so this week is kind of a big week for our family.
Yeah.
And we should tell the story first. Don't you think? Tell the story. Because not everybody may know the story. So, 10 years ago, Nathan went on a bike ride.
So I should probably tell this part.
Okay, you tell this part.
And then you can tell the part in the hospital.
Oh, now you just
kind of out of it.
Little hint.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I end up in the hospital. But this is a celebration of life, and a birthday celebration. But 10 years ago, on 4th of July, I went on a ride up Butterfield Canyon on my bike, and it got pretty intense.
The week before, he'd done 100 miles.
Yeah. So, it was coming off a century ride, and I got a little dehydrated. And usually I'm really good about hydrating. I don't have an issue with it. But this time I had some weird symptoms, what was it? Just tightness down both arms and this pain across my shoulders, and didn't know what was going on. I thought I was just dehydrated, right? So get some fluids in me, but I was throwing up and nauseous. And
okay, we have to pause there for a minute.
Yeah.
Because I had a big party planned, and I was making the cake for the 4th of July.
And I did get home from the ride. So
he got home from the ride.
Happened after.
So I was very much in this trying to get the party, and he's sick, and then he's not sick, and then he's sick, and I'm like, just make up your mind.
Yeah, so we had plans that day, a party, and I didn't want to wreck those, but I just kept laying in bed, and I'd sit up for a little bit, and I'd throw up again.
Yeah, and I admit that I probably wasn't as sympathetic as I should have been, because by then I had been pregnant 9 times. So I'd been doing a lot of throwing up in our marriage.
So she knew how to be sick really well.
Yeah.
And I wasn't as experienced.
And so I kind of barked at him. Yeah. This is an important part of the story. Kind of barked at him about being sick and not being clear.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, and I walked out of the room, and I just kind of had this feeling is that really how you want to be, Leta? And I was like, no. So I went back into the room, and I was like, sorry, and that was not nice of me, and, just kind of apologized, and he hugged me, and, it was us against the world again, right? So that's an important part of the story.
Yep. And
then
the fireworks finished that night, and I was like, Leta, I'm not feeling any better. You should better take me to the hospital.
So I'm thinking we'll take him to the hospital, because if
get some fluids in me.
Because, he needs some high intensity Gatorade kind of thing. So we go to the hospital, and I actually love hey, Jean, how are you? Jean from Australia. Yeah, hey, you remember her?
Yep.
Anyway, so we go to we're at the hospital, and I like hospitals because I'm a medical interpreter, or was a medical interpreter for the deaf. So it's kind of if you've been in the hospital and you've kind of worked there, there's kind of a rhythm to them that's interesting. And so I'm not freaked out that we're in a hospital. In fact, I'm thinking we're going to be here for a long time because he's dehydrated. And he was sitting up, and he was, as they say in England, being sick. He was saying throw up, just so it was clear to everybody. And he fell into my arms, and the voice told me he was dead. And that was not that was the voice of God. And God spoke some things to me that literally changed me as a person. It took everything that I knew to be true and drove it deeper into my soul. And there I was, holding my dead husband.
I don't remember this too much, but I do remember
he died
back into my body. I remember that hearing Leta from a long ways away, Nathan, wake up. And she seemed like she was just long, way down this long hallway. And as I came back into my body, there's like a tunnel vision, and the light just got brighter and brighter, and then all of a sudden I was there, and she was looking at me right in my face, and I was like, whoa. I guess she's right here.
Because I had actually
really surreal.
In some of the things that God had said to me, which it's pretty sacred stuff, but I had like this of opening that I knew what I was supposed to do for him. But I saw something from the corner of my eye as I'm looking at my husband, who didn't quite look like him because he was dead. Because what makes him him was no longer in him.
He was not animated.
He was not animated. Yeah. I saw from the corner of my eye like this lightest shadow come into him. I know I saw my husband's soul or spirit, depending on what your belief system is, but I saw that. I am a witness. Because here he is. So then...
So you're all witnesses now.
Yeah, because I'm telling you.
I'm still alive.
I'm telling you, God is real, and we are more than this physical frame. I know that. I know it. So anyway, then the nurse comes in, and I said, my husband just died, and I signed in sign language an EKG, and she's like, what? And I said, and I need an EKG. And so she's like, oh, EKGs are so expensive, and started kind of lecturing me on the process. And Nathan, true to Nathan, is like, how expensive? And I'm like, we are getting this. Even when you're just been alive for a few seconds, you're worried about money. And what I'm saying...
I wasn't brain dead.
No, he was not brain dead. That my husband died, Fatima, he came back to life. I saw his spirit or his soul come back into his body. And so that's what I'm saying. I'm a witness that miracles happen and that God is real. So then they did an EKG on him, and all of a sudden she stopped lecturing me and hit the big button on the wall, and this team of people ran in, and then somebody else was like, tell me more about what happened. So evidently on her way out of the room, she's like, interview the wife or whatever. And they started asking me all these questions about how long was he gone, what happened.
And they took did a blood test.
Well, they had the EKG, they did blood tests, and they were doing all these different things. Come to find out, Nathan, throughout the day that I was being unsympathetic, had a massive heart attack, the kind of which they call a widowmaker. I think it should be renamed. I think that's a bad name. And half of his heart was affected, and at the end of it, a quarter of his heart, so your heart's in basically 4 quadrants, most of that lower quadrant was not operating, and he had a blockage at the top, right, at the top of the entrance into the heart. So kind of needed 100% blockage of an artery there, and that's why he had died. And he'd been having little heart attacks all throughout the whole entire day that I was not being nice to him.
Well, I was being kept alive with half a heart, basically.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah. Laurie's had heart issues, so she's like, hello, yeah, heart friends. She had a pretty bad scare this last year.
I had a strong enough heart for that, so I was thankful for that.
Yeah, so half a heart kept him alive. And so then we go to, he's doing all these different tests, and I could make this a really long story, but
we don't have time.
But we don't have time for that. And I was to sign paperwork that I understand where they're doing the stent that he may not survive. We had some very sacred moments. With the funny part, when I told him he had a heart attack, he's like, Leta, you're so dramatic. And I'm like, telling a good story does not make me overly
I was
dramatic.
On drugs by that
He
point.
was on drugs and he was high. But one of the things that, then when I talk in my speaking, that I talk about how I promised him not to worry about us, and we meet you there. And ironically, for those of you that know about our daughter, we gave her the same promise to not worry about us, that we'd meet her there. So really sacred, tender things. And while he was in all these different surgeries, the doctors kept explaining to me the gravity of a quarter of his heart not working, and especially the location of where it was, that it was not beating, that it was dead. And once you have dead brain, eye, or heart tissue, it can never reanimate. It's dead. It's dead. And so I said, I said to one doctor, are you telling me that he has less than 10 years? And he goes, that's good. Be really positive like that.
And here we are, 10 years later.
Yeah, but telling somebody be really positive your husband has less than 10 years. When I was 34 at the time, Nathan was 35. It was a week before his 36th birthday. That did not feel really positive because I did the math. I'm pretty bad at math, but I can add 10. So I would be 44 years old, and they were telling me that was a positive outcome, that my husband would not be living to then. And that was also in our 10th year of marriage, so there's a lot of 10, 10, 10. I'm distracted by all the hotness looking at you two. We're on fire. We did just have an overeat dinner. Anyway.
We're at Snowbird, by the way.
We're at Snowbird. Yeah. So he, about two months later, we're back in. There's lots and lots of tests and studies and medical things that were happening in that. But the ultrasound tech was working on him, and she went really quiet, and I thought...
So this is a few weeks later when I went back for an echo checkup.
Yeah, thank you for making me more clear. Because I'm not in speaker mode right now. I'm talking to my girlfriend's mode.
So this wasn't right after, it was a few weeks after.
Yeah. And so in that time, we're literally having to look at the fact that Nathan is going to be dying way too young. He's having conversations with me about what to do with the money and the meager assets that we had. I mean, we weren't that far out of law school, and
more debt than anything.
He had more debt than anything, really. But we have 2 kids, and I'm pregnant. But I hadn't told him yet because, for me, pregnancy didn't equal baby because I had a lot of miscarriages. And the ultrasound tech, anyway, gets really quiet, and I'm thinking, oh, she's about to give us some really bad news. And so I was doing this little mantra, this is not about you, this is about him, this is about the kids. You got to be strong for them. And having been a medical interpreter, the more doctors you get in the room, that usually means some bad news is coming. And there was a lot of doctors in the room. And they said, you don't have dead heart tissue. You did, but you don't. And Nathan and I grabbed each other's hands. Here, let's reenact it.
Oh, here we go.
We said, amen. And one doctor went, and the other doctor went. But we are proof that miracles happen. And I am so thankful that my sweetheart, because he's the only one for me, is here, and that I am not a 44-year-old widow. And we look at all the things that have happened over his last 10 years and the goodness that God has brought into our lives. And Nathan's name means the gift, and he is my gift for all the poop I went through before meeting him, and he continues to be my gift. And I wanted to share all this with you because...
Thanks for making me so happy in my life.
I'm glad you again.
Glad to still be here.
But I just wanted to share all this with you because, one, our relationship with our Savior Jesus Christ is the center of our lives, and we would be remiss not to share this story again and again and again of how we have been blessed.
So we're going to do this again in 10 more years?
Maybe even before that time, we'll tell that story again. We'll be like... But this one...
2028.
This one, they didn't talk
Put
about
it on
you...
your calendar.
They didn't talk about you living 20 years. They're 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
So it's just every year, 4th of July, we kind of make jokes because Nathan keeps getting hurt on the 4th of July. So we're like, stop getting hurt. But this one is particularly poignant that he is here. And that heart attack, that moment, that conversation with God, like I said, drove everything I knew to be true deeper. And then that also helped prepare us for our daughter, Caitlin, because we needed heaven close. And we knew that it was real. And Caitlin's life and her short life is why most of you probably know me, because you neither know me from ramping up my speaking or ramping up my makeup business, and I would have never become a speaker or an author if it hadn't been for Caitlin, because I got to impress all my kids, So do you also celebrate being hit by the bus? We kind of mark that hey.
No, we just laugh about that.
We mostly laugh. Okay, I should tell him the story.
No,
not the bus story. This is a funny story. So he got hit by the bus. He had a heart attack. Then I was in a wheelchair, and then our youngest passed away. So one day we were in church, and this gentleman was teaching that didn't know us, right? You remember the story, right? This is funny. And he goes, he made a comment and he said, sometimes you just get hit by it, like life hits you like you've been hit by a bus. And everybody was kind of like, and kind of looked over at us, and he was like, okay, that wasn't usually how that line goes. And then he's like, well, you guys all just looked like you had a heart attack. And everyone's like,
that one doesn't work either.
Looking over at us. And so I thought, well, I'm going to clear it up for him. So I raised my hand and I said, the reason they're all a little uncomfortable is because my husband did get hit by a bus and did have a heart attack. And he's, a year later, and the guy's like, oh, sorry about that. And I'm pregnant. He goes, oh, but I see you're pregnant and everything's fine there. And I'm like, yeah. Because we had just said, we're like, just don't. We'll just leave it at that, because we had just found out that Caitlin would have issues and he didn't need to see the canes underneath the chair. So pretty funny story of guy putting his foot in his mouth. So we just waited till he left the room before I got up to walk out. But never know, because getting hit by a bus is kind of funny. But at least it's not.
So lesson learned, know your audience.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share that with you, how blessed we've been, and I'm very thankful that my sweetheart is here with us. We're up here in Snowbird celebrating his birthday early, because I'll be doing a run-through on his actual birthday for my TEDx talk. And he doesn't want to share me anymore, huh? Oh, exercising can be dangerous. That's a theory I lived off of for years, but I'm back to exercising. So, okay, bye, my friends.
Bye-bye.